The group stage has just ended at this year's Copa America, and I think the biggest takeaway out of all of this, besides the fact that Messi has a really easy path to the finals, is that this Brazilian team is not one you need to be fearful of. You see, over the past few decades now, the Brazilian national team has garnered this reputation of being one of, if not the best soccer team in all of the Americas. And maybe it's because of the superstars they're able to produce time and time again, like a Pelé or Ronaldinho, Thiago Silva, Dani Alves, the list goes on and on, you get me. But what I'm trying to say is that no matter what year it is, the expectation for Brazil is through the roof. And this year, they just don't seem to be living up to it, right? They've had 3 group stage matches so far, and they only walked away with 1 win. Now, Brazil has had a tough time ever since they've had to replace their longtime manager, Tite, right? Who had to step down in 2022 after Brazil's poor performance at the World Cup, if that's what you want to call it, okay? Now, he had been their manager from 2016 to 2022, and in that time, they did win a Copa America, but they also had 2 World Cups where they finished in the quarterfinals, most recently being against Croatia in penalties. After that loss to Croatia, Tite was done as the manager, and Brazil started their journey of looking for a new head coach, a new GM to be their man heading into the 2026 World Cup. And that's where they settled on Dorival Jr. And I'll get to that man in a sec. But for right now, I just wanted to remind you guys to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and make sure to get us to 3,000. We're trying to hit 3,000 subs. I feel like we can get there. Every subscription is much appreciated. All right, now let's get back to talking about this Brazilian team. Now, why have they failed at this year's Copa America, if that's what you want to call it, right? They've struggled out the gate, I will say that. Well, there are a ton of reasons, and maybe it's because of their new manager, right? Dorival, nobody likes him. He's been on the team for 6 games so far. They've got 3 wins and 3 draws. That's not the most impressive record. Have they lost yet? No, but it's really hard to lose when you're managing a team like Brazil, okay? Now, I will say, them having a new manager does hurt them a little bit heading into this tournament, but what hurts them even more is not having their superstar Neymar there, okay? Neymar isn't playing for Brazil at this year's Copa America because of the injury he suffered in October when he was playing for this Brazilian national team in a World Cup qualifier versus Uruguay, okay, where he tore his ACL. So of course, if you watch sports, torn ACLs happen all the time. Usually they're pretty damaging to the career, but I think Neymar will recover just fine, right? It'll just take a lot of time. We may not see him until the end of this year play again, right? And that's just the truth. So he's going to be missing this year's Copa America, and that has also set this team back quite a bit. Now, can they still win it all without him? Maybe, but they can't be as dominant without their star there. And who knows how many more years left Neymar has playing at this national level, because he is 32 years old, and not everybody is Messi or Ronaldo and can play till their late 30s at such a high level, especially with the injury history that a guy like Neymar has, all right? So I just want to remind you to keep that in mind as we go on to talk about Brazil at this year's Copa America. Now, their first game is really what kicked things off and had not only fans, but analysts alike worrying about this national team. You see, here's the thing. They went up against Costa Rica in game 1, and they basically dominated every aspect of the game. They had possession for over 70% of the game. They had 19 shot attempts, and yet not a single one was able to go in the goal. I watched the game, okay, and I recognize the fact that Costa Rica was never going to score on this Brazilian team. They barely had any opportunities to do so. But what they were going to do was make sure that this Brazilian team had no goals by any means necessary. Their best hope was squeaking out with a draw here, and that's exactly what had happened. I mean, their formation, their tactics, all seemingly worked out. Now, there were a few close calls in this game where Brazil got really close to scoring, but could never put it in the back of the net. And that's in thanks to, the goalkeeper for Costa Rica. He did his job. He stood strong. The defensive line for Costa Rica was also pretty phenomenal. And the goal scorers just weren't there. Vinicius Jr. looked pretty ineffective throughout this whole match. And that's something that's really had to come into play for this Brazilian team, is not creating enough opportunities for their strikers. Now, Brazil didn't lose this game versus Costa Rica. If they had, the whole world would have flipped on their heads. They ended it in a draw. But was that alone disappointing in itself? Of course. If you're Brazil, you're heading in this game and expecting a win. Hell, you're heading into this tournament and expecting to win all 3 of your group stage matches. And starting off with the draw, well, that just isn't really a good look for the rest of the tournament. And the Brazilian team knew this, which is exactly why heading into game 2, they were going to make sure they showed the rest of the competition just how dominant they truly were. And of course, this game was against Paraguay, so it wouldn't be too hard to do that. Now, in the 30th minute, Paquetá had a penalty kick opportunity that he completely whiffed, went hard right, but luckily, Vini Jr. was there to pick up the pieces, because only 5 minutes later, he put the ball in the back of the net for Brazil's first goal of the entire tournament. And after that, the floodgates just opened right up, all right? Because I want to say 8 minutes later, Rodrigo's making a run down the left side of the pitch, takes a shot, bounces off the goalkeeper, and then Savio is there to just kind of touch the ball right into the goal. And then, you know, Vini Jr. gets another goal. Paquetá is able to redeem himself in like the 63rd minute. That's when he makes his PK, and Brazil would go on to beat Paraguay 4-1. And okay, yes, Brazil did look good there, but that's how they're supposed to look. And in game 3, well, this is where things get dicey, because this is the most anticipated match in the entire group stage. It really doesn't get better than Brazil versus Colombia, and let me tell you, we got one hell of a game out of it. You see, Colombia went into this game knowing that for them to advance in first place in the group, they were going to either need a win or a draw, and the only way Brazil was going to top the group was with a win, okay? So Brazil were the attackers for the first half of this game. They were the ones trying to get that early goal, and that's exactly what happened, because Colombia played a little too aggressive defense. You know, Brazil was set up with a really good set piece around the 12th minute. Something that Raphinha was able to use to their advantage, as he scored an absolute banger from right outside the box. And after this goal, it felt like, okay, Brazil might actually walk away with the win that they need here. But of course, they didn't account for how hungry this Colombian team was going to be. Because after Brazil got their goal, Colombia tried their absolute hardest and got it done right before the half. As James Rodriguez, a guy who's been fantastic this tournament, was able to get the ball to Cordoba. Cordoba deflected it right to Daniel Muñoz, who was able to put it in past a sliding Allison. And after that, it was pure intensity and suspense for the rest of the match. I mean, right after halftime, no one knew exactly when the goals were going to pop off. And they didn't, okay? The game ended up going 1-1. Both teams drew. And Brazil now has a tough matchup in the quarterfinals. They have to play Uruguay. And of course, if they win, they'll probably have to play this Colombian team again. And that's all before reaching the finals. They set themselves up to have a really difficult run for the rest of the Copa America, and if we're being honest, I don't see them getting out of the quarterfinals with the way that they're playing. They're going to need to be a much more improved team if they want to have any chance going up against Uruguay. But anyway, that's about it for this video. Really just wanted to cover their tournament run so far, because who knows how early it's gonna end, alright? Catch y'all later. If you guys are new, make sure to check out a couple other Copa America videos I made right here. But like I said, that's about it. See y'all next time. Deuces.